Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Somewhere around 1875, long before the era of radio and television, Dr. Christopher Davis was preaching the gospel on the streets of Aberdeen in Scotland. People paid special attention too, partly because he was a black man in a white man's world, a graduate student in medicine from Barbados. As a result, a certain William Deans and his wife committed their lives to Christ. A few years later, in 1880, their son Robert was born, and in time, like his parents, he became an active believer. Early in life, Robert developed a heart for missions in the Belgian Congo in particular, but the early death of his father, William, gave him special responsibility for his mother, so he remained in Scotland. One day, when the famous American evangelistic team of Torrey and Alexander arrived in Aberdeen for gospel meetings at the music hall, Robert served as a counselor and had the joy of helping a certain Willie McIver to find peace with God. That contact led to Robert's becoming good friends with Willie McIver's family and falling in love with his sister, Christine. In 1906, Robert emigrated to the USA and sometime later found himself helping with the construction of the Panama Canal as a boilermaker. 2 years later, Christine McIver joined him from Scotland, and they were married in Panama aboard ship. One day, the small boat that Robert Deans was using was swamped by the wake of a ship, throwing him into shark-infested waters. Unable to swim, he went down twice before a black man risked his life to dive in off the big ship and pull Robert to safety. Returning to the USA sometime later, Robert attended theological seminary and became a pastor, working his boilermaker trade part-time to make ends meet. The couple settled in California, where sometime later, reflecting on his family history, he observed that on 2 occasions his family had been saved by a black man, once spiritually, once physically. This revived Robert's vision for missions in the Congo, so at the tender age of 49, he decided to give the rest of his life to missionary work among black people in Africa. This was 1929, the time of the Wall Street crash and the Great Depression. But trusting God to meet his needs, he and Christine left California for the Belgian Congo, taking with them their 3 children, son Bill, who was 21, daughter Ella, who was 16, and son Bob, who was 14. It was not an easy journey as they traveled across the USA, then by ship to England, then a 1-month journey by ship to East Africa, and another long journey through Kenya and Uganda via train, boat, and motor vehicle, before finally reaching the Belgian Congo. Robert and Christine served the Lord for 30 years in the Congo. Son Bill helped develop the mission station at Nyankunde, celebrated for its hospital, church, and printing press. Son Robert also served in Africa, but died of cancer at the tender age of 29. Daughter Ella, however, labored for a few years in the Congo, then went back to the States for Bible college, where she met and married Bill Spies. After studying French in Belgium, en route to the Congo, the newlyweds settled in the jungle at Lolwa, where they ministered for half a century among the villagers and pygmies. They founded a clinic, a school, a church, a leper colony, and a seniors' home at Lolwa. And they made regular safaris into the forest to camp amongst the pygmies and share the good news of Jesus in their heart language. Ella also helped translate the Bible into Congo Swahili. Early in their marriage, a little girl was born to Bill and Ella, Jeannie, and 2 years later, a second girl, Nancy, the only white children in a black world. Once World War II was over, the family planned a visit to the USA. They crossed the Atlantic in a flying boat from Nigeria to Brazil, but Jeannie became very ill and died there. As Nancy saw her sister's coffin lowered into the ground, she asked the Lord to take her one day to be where Jeannie was, dating her conversion from that experience. 2 years later, Nancy returned to Africa with her family. But when she was 13, she was placed with a Christian foster family in Kansas for her high school studies. And then she moved to California for university, where she met a young student from Bristol in England, who is now sharing his life with her, and this story with you. In 1968, God called us to pastoral ministry in France with our 2 young sons. Today, they, with their wives, are also missionaries in their own right. And that's how the faithful witness of a foreigner from Barbados who preached the gospel on the streets of Aberdeen well over 100 years ago resulted in 4 generations of our family becoming missionaries. It's a reminder that our influence has a ripple effect. Christians do well to heed the instructions of the prophet Samuel. Fear the Lord and faithfully serve Him. You never know how God can use your life to bless others. And thank you for tuning in to Village Church Connections.